everyone, and welcome to Mastrius for this sneak peek with artist and mentor Rose Irelan. At Mastrius, we get personal feedback, teaching, advice, and support from master artists of your choice so you can reach your goals in your style and at your pace. I'm your host, Anna Zanella. I'm an artist, navigator, and events coordinator at Mastrius. Today, I'm thrilled to introduce Mastrius mentor, Rose Irelan. She's joining us today from California. Rose is an award-winning artist, teacher, and mentor. She calls herself a contemporary impressionist and creates landscapes, florals, and figurative work. As a mentor, Rose likes to focus on design fundamentals, composition, value, and drawing, taking her mentees through exercises and concepts on how to create a strong composition with the powerful tools or notions and thumbnails. And she loves to help artists improve their art. So I'm really excited to have Rose here and really excited to dive into some of the tips Rose is going to be sharing with us today. So I will pass it on to you, Rose.
Thanks, Anna. Welcome everybody. I'm really excited to share my slideshow with you. It will encompass a lot of what I teach and what has elevated my art practice to the next level. I've been practicing art as a 40 years. I'm pretty ancient. I went to art school. And then I was a graphic designer for 20 years, and now we're going on 20 more years here exploring all about fine art and painting and drawing. And so I have a lot of knowledge to share, and it's been a long and fruitful and exciting journey for me. And it's been especially exciting more recently when I've developed some of these concepts that I'm going to share with you that has taken my artwork from what I would say is an emerging artist to more of a professional artist, and kind of gaining that recognition and momentum to move forward and, move forward with the sales and just bringing my teaching even to a, more of a robust teaching method. And so these concepts that I'm going to share with you, I think will really just kind of open up your mind of what you can do to find your own artistic voice. So I think I'll just jump into the slideshow because it has a lot of these concepts, and we'll just get moving.
Enjoying the video? Don't forget to like, subscribe, and click the bell to be notified when new Mastrius videos are added.
I wanted to talk about designing with intention and how that gives us a freedom of artistry through limitations. So this is a very filled sentence: freedom of artistry through limitations. I think a lot of artists think that they would be better without limitations, but actually limitations free us more, and they create more space for our own artistic voice. So we'll explore this further. Number one is design. I feel design is the divine ruler of art. There are a lot of types of motifs and things about art that woo us. And believe me, like, I'm a colorist, so color can be a big one for us that can really get us very excited. And but it also can kind of stray us away from the main divine ruler, which is design. That was a hard lesson for me to learn, so that's why I put that as number one. And it really helps when I see my students blossom. It's because they've taken the time to learn about design. So some design principles, which I would go in much further in my course, and I do with my students. But some main design principles are unity and variety, tension and counterweight or balance, hard or soft edges or a combination thereof, dominance in shape, color, and value, and dynamic versus calming. Dynamic is, more angled lines, where calming is more horizontal lines. Pattern and repetition, overlap, and connections, i.e. connecting your darks, connecting your lights, making more solid design masses versus spotty design masses all over the place. So we want, in general, you want a lot of something, like a lot of something, like that would be your 2/3 versus 1/3, which would be a medium kind of shape, versus a little bit, which is like an accent. So that's a very, streamed down way of saying that. But you need to work with those, the dominance and the choices that we make, to connect our design patterns. Composition. Composition simply means putting together. So how you arrange shapes within your picture format is how you would be composing your composition, how you be composing your art. The mind cannot register more than 5 to 7 shapes without feeling chaos. But we as artists are so inclined to see all the details. We are detail-oriented beings. And that's where the challenge comes in. Just like how I talked to you about how color, would woo me and take me away. And, and I would have a hard time. I wondered why my paintings weren't, taking off. I mean, like family and friends loved them. They loved my color and everything. But it was, that I needed to pull together my composition and my design. And so that's a big one too, that I have really noticed when I work with my students. We can really make progress on that. And this affects all of us, whether you're beginning or you've been painting for many years. It still creeps up in my work. And all of us, need reminders of these fundamentals. And so we're going to talk about 5 really basic but super important fundamentals. And we started with, well, I take this back here. We're going to, right here is our first of our 5 fundamentals. I forgot to throw that in, but anyways, we have design as our number 1 and composition is number 2. 3 is concept. So concept, what was it that you made you want to paint something? What is it that makes your heart beat? What was that thing that grabbed you? The emotion and the mood and the atmosphere and the light. What was happening with the light? Whatever's happening with light, make it beautiful. And write down these ideas and define them and get very clear on them. We need to slow down sometimes as artists. We're so excited to just jump in and paint. We see it in our mind's eye, but we do need a little bit of discipline on being more clear, because then we can, kind of be like the squirrel, like, oh, I liked this and I liked this. And we start, chasing these ideas. So, it's really good to take a little time to write down your ideals, define them, and get clear on them on each painting before you do it. It will save you so much time and will build a stronger painting, a stronger presentation. And to do
And
something else.
can I just interject? And that's one of the
Yeah.
things talking about before, that you put that work ahead of time before you paint.
Yes.
That will help you down the line. It seems like there's all this work that needs to be done ahead, but it will veer you towards the right direction, right, from the beginning.
Yeah, that's good to point out, because it can be a little overwhelming to think like, oh, I just want to do this. I just want to jump in and be my free artistic self. And I get that. And I did that for many, many years. And not that that's a waste. And sometimes you hit it and sometimes you don't. But this, if you want to, if you're an emerging artist, you've gotten to the point where you want to be more serious about your art and you want things to work out for you. You don't have the time to guess, and you want to be more productive and efficient. And so that's what happened to me too. And so then it's like, oh, okay, I am humbled from the process. I get it. I'm going to, slow down and take the time to do this right before I blow through a 30 by 40 canvas, hundreds of dollars of paint, my time, yeah, and, maybe miss a deadline because you didn't take the time to define your ideas. Does that help?
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. And believe me, I've been there. This is why I this is why I put this together for y'all. And to do thumbnails and thumbnail studies and notans to solidify your concept, which I'm going to go over. So, and I think of, it's helpful to think about your concept a lot like writing. It might take some rough drafts to get you there, but give yourself the time you need to develop it. And even when I'm in the field, I'll do a quick, when I am doing a lot of plein air, I do a lot of plein air painting, have in the past and still do. I do quick notans out in the field, and I'll show you that in the next slides. So that was number 3, concept. And number 4 is motif. And a motif is a distinctive feature or dominant idea. Now, the concept is that motif and concept kind of intermingle, but the concept is the big idea, like the inspiration and the emotional qualities, where the motif gets a little bit more in the nitty-gritty of what is that dominant idea, like the visual idea, okay? Like as a designer, and we're all painters, but we're also designers. So what is that visual idea? Is it shape? Is it color, value, pattern and rhythm, atmosphere, or line? And I try to, again, this is the limitations. It can't be all about all of these. So it's like, I like to compare it to music. I'm a musician. So it's like you wouldn't write a song and you wouldn't have like a jazz chords mixed in with the country and Western genre mixed in with pop. You wouldn't mix them all together. It's either a jazz song, it's either country and Western, there's like a motif. So we need to do the same thing, our dominant idea. So I write that down, and I'll do that even when I'm in the field. And sometimes it's hard to find it quite, right away. And I will say sometimes the painting speaks to you, or, that process will speak to you, and just to be aware of it. So, the slide shows about designing with intention or with mindset. So we want to just be aware of looking for that while we're going through the process. Is it about shape, color, value, pattern, rhythm, atmosphere, or line? And the next one is drawing. And drawing is something that I've been teaching for 20 years. And I can't tell you how many times everyone's like, I don't want to take the drawing class. I just want to jump in and paint. And it could be all ages across the board. And because I've taught all ages. And so, yeah, it's a fact though, painting is drawing with a brush, and therefore we always need to work on this skill. And even if you're an abstract artist, there's just something about drawing that's going to make you more sensitive about your mark making and your decisions on composing. And there's just, I could go on and on. But you can learn to simplify with drawing and showing what is most significant. You know, we're just talking using charcoal, or I just use Sharpie pens a lot. Just mark making and showing what's most significant. And another thing that comes from drawing is learning about light and form. And if you are a representational artist of, you know, any type, you do need to know your stuff about light and form. And I go into that a lot with my critiques and just overall teaching. I'm always looking for that light and form, and it's helped me with my work. That's why I do feel it's important. And just to respect perspective. I used to not like perspective, and my husband's an architect, and he would always find on my paintings that, you know, something with a perspective that was off. And for many years, I would tell him to just go away, and it was supposed to be that way, and, you know, leave me alone. And but I did slowly learn to respect perspective. Plus, I've been teaching all this time, so I would see in my students their perspective would be way off, and then, you know, it has to be addressed. And so, you know, have a respect for that. And then, you know, yeah, good or bad drawing can make or break a painting. And then you will notice that the last of these in my list of the main fundamentals is color. And yet, you know, it is all our favorite. Well, maybe not everybody's, but definitely one of mine. And so color, it definitely, you know, is our muse. But, you know, as they say, and I'm sure everyone's heard this a million times, the value gets all the color gets all the credit, but value does all the work. But anyways, I'm sure everyone's heard that, but still, you know, we do need to bow down to design and value. And then color, though, I really love how I can orchestrate color to work within the design in a way that's very intentional and that works with light. And so that is one of my big cornerstones of my work and what I teach others. One way I do this is orchestrating color with color sets for harmonic color through the practice of working on these color sets, which are color boards that we do in our class. And, you know, I know that this is a mentorship, so we won't always be doing color boards, but I will be encouraging my students to explore color and make this, you know, a part of their practice, you know, on some level. And this will help you when you proceed into your final studio painting. Just working with limited palettes, exploring color through limited palettes, understanding mixing and palette management are things that I will be covering as well. And then this is just a little, you know, those are the main concepts, but one thing that kind of just is an underlying theme that I always want to keep in mind with my work that is it kind of goes in with, it's kind of like a subcategory of all of those other categories that I just talked about. But unity and variety is something that we want to keep in mind. And unity, this is a quote from Bernard Dunstan, and I just love this. Unity is necessary because without it, our minds and eyes are worried by a disorganized muddle. Some overall shape or pattern has to be imposed. Things have to hang together. On the other hand, without variety, our second need, our eyes quickly become bored and lose interest. So we're always playing this dance of unity and variety, you know, making things organized and designed and beautiful and kind of edited down to the bare essentials, but to have that little variety, you know, and it's kind of like cooking. So it's just a fun thing to keep in mind. It's it's something that I always like when I go to the end of my painting, or, you know, I'm getting towards the end, does it have unity and variety? That's something I ask myself. So designing with intention, by finding clarity in our concept and motif and limiting our palette with colors, values, and shapes, we actually create more freedom of expression and create more original works of art. This is the path to finding your own artistic voice and creating more joy in your art journey. Do you have any questions?
No, I
Anna?
love all the concepts that you're going through. I think, you know, you go back to the basics and make it organized so people can have a framework kind of to follow.
Oh, good, 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 good. This is a painting from George Bellows, and I'm going to show you some of his thumbnails towards the end, but composition is the freedom of a thing to be its best by being in its right place in the organization. It is just a sense of relation of things. That's from Robert Henry, from The Art Spirit. So I wanted to talk about the power of no-tan. You've heard me I was going to put the definition in there, but ran out of time. But anyways, no-tan, I will tell you the definition. No-tan is your design simplified to just the black and white, literally in just black and white. This will all make sense, but it's the underlying structure of your design of your painting. So this is a page from Arthur Dow's book, Art Education Should Begin with Composition, as he quoted. And he taught this. He was Georgia O'Keeffe's teacher, and he called this no-tan. He also called it spotting. And these are some famous paintings that are you know, dialed down to just the raw no-tan that he did. And this is, you know, in the early 1900s. But they're from the master studies. And so he's showing, you know, their underlying armature design. And so this is why I love this so much, because, you know, when I talked about the distribution of space, you know, the 1/3, 2/3, and a little bit, or the dominance, you know, you got to find that dominance and that, you know, distribution. If you just go to just black and white, it makes it more clear. And we don't get all muddled up with all the color and all the texture and pattern and all that. So, you know, you can clearly see in these master paintings the dominance of either it's light or dark. There's a dominance there. It's not 50-50. There's a weight to it. And these are that's just a little quote from him from the book, but these are just more illustrations from the book, you know, his composition book. And it's showing more about like how you can choose, you know, if you're, what the dominance is. You can also choose on your cropping. And these are examples of my no-tans. Really rough. They don't have to be pretty. They just have to have that distribution. I mean, you're studying it. This is like, you know, an athlete warming up before they go do their sport. It warms up your brain, and it helps you see very quickly what works and what doesn't work. And so I'll flush through, you know, and I learned this way back in art school in the 80s, you know, with the thumbnails, the little thumbnails. They used to make us do 30 thumbnails before we do our illustration. And they called them thumbnails back then, but they didn't teach us the no-tan idea, which I wish they would have, because I would just make these tiny little drawings and I try to put everything in there. And I never really got that concept until I started to paint and teach and go through this journey, more of an atelier way. And I came across the no-tan idea. But anyways, so my point is, it's a way of fleshing things out and figuring out if they're good or bad. So, I might flush through, it might be the first one that works out, or I might flush through several no-tans to find that, balance and that armature that I really like. And I always put them in little squares, which is the thumbnail idea, because you need the first 4 lines of any composition are the 4 lines around the perimeter of your picture plane. Then you need to think about the positive and the negative space. That's also another, if you don't have those 4 lines around your picture plane, you cannot think about the positive and the negative space. So that's very powerful and very important. And then you're going to try to be thinking of those 5 to 7 shapes, right? And then, the distribution, the dominance. So I'm going to walk you through a case study and how I apply this to my work.
In Rose, I just want to ask you a question. So
Yeah.
those concepts would work for any kind of subject, right?
They would. That's
flowers or portraits or
work with any subject.
Yeah.
Any subject. Yeah, you just have to. It really is actually kind of hard at first. It's kind of like a visual Rubik's cube for your brain. So, I mean, I've been teaching this for a while, and, it looks easy. Like when you see my, sloppy little sketches and stuff, they're like, oh, I can do that. And it does seem easy, but I always hear, not always, but sometimes often hear, like, this is hard. And it is hard. It makes us use our brain, but what happens, you get better and better as you practice it, and you start seeing in no-tan and you start designing more in no-tan, and it really is such a powerful skill that will stay with you. Good question. Okay, case study number 1 is my painting Illuminate Tide Pool. I don't need to go into every one of those awards, but I was really happy that it did win a lot of awards and was highly recognized throughout a lot of national shows. And it was cool. I was really happy about how that worked out. But I had no idea it would end up being like that. And it just ended up as it started out as a little plein air study in San Luis Obispo, where my daughter goes to school. I went out and painted. I was something that was important to me. I'm going to go back to here for a minute. And so, anyways, I was out painting the coast, in the Central Coast. And this here at the top image is my plein air study. And then below you can see the photograph of the tide pools that I was painting. It was late in the day, so the light was a late in the day backlight situation. I had to work so fast because this was like my 3rd painting that day, and I was tired. I almost didn't do it, but it was at the end of the day, and it was so glowy and pretty, and with illuminating light and the sparkles, that I did do it. And so, let's see, let's go back here. So you can see how raw and, my little sketches above. So I literally took like, 2 minutes to do that. And the tide was coming in. And it was just, I had to go fast, but I took I'm like, I have to stick to my system. And this is how, whenever I don't want to do it, I'm like, just stick to the system, trust it. And, just did a quick little study, and that's my final though. So, that's like from the very initial plein air, no tan to the final. But there is my plein air painting. So brought the, how it goes sometimes for me is I feel like those plein air paintings are total gems. Some of them work out, some of them don't. But they, I bring them home and take a look at them, after a trip or, or just, out in my local area and kind of study them, along my bookshelf. And, if one really wants to be bigger, I honor that. And this one kind of screamed out to me to try it bigger. So my motif, we talked about motif. I decided my motif would be about the atmosphere, and the secondary kind of like an underlying motif was shape. So I went ahead and did some studio prep. So the beginning of my studio prep was to do a more robust value study, since I just had that kind of like that little wimpy little sketch that I did out in the field. And I knew I wanted to go by like 20 by 40. And I mean, that's like $100 panel, and yeah. And I wasn't painting for any type of contest or anything. I just wanted to do this. But I was like, yeah, you better take the time to do some studies. So I did this value study, from my study in the photo, and kind of worked on the shapes and organized my value. Now, there's a lot of values in here because when you do seascapes, there's a lot of sensitivity and nuances, but I kind of think of them in groups. So if you think of it in groups, you still have your light and your medium and your dark grouping, because you want to try to stay within 3 or 4 main values. It will make a more powerful painting. But in my light group, I had the sky and the foam light. And then in my middle group, which it's a lot of middle in this painting, so it was a dominance of mid value, was the clear water and the rocks. And I have all these notes, the clear water and the rocks. And what else did I say? Yeah, I can't even read my own writing. And then on the dark, there was the rocks and the dark shadows. So, 3 value groupings basically, and just organizing those values. And I'm pretty happy with, I was happy with that gouache. It was holding together, the shapes were working together. There's a flow also compositionally that takes you back into, I can't use my mouse on this slideshow, or I would, but there's a flow, though. There's an S flow, kind of like an S composition that takes you back into the atmosphere, which was the initial motif about that foggy, coastal kind of atmosphere. And I really wanted to work with creating that sense of depth. That's something that I had been working on, and I still been working on that a lot, just showing depth in my paintings. So now with the color study, it was with gouache. I think I lost a little bit of the atmospheric feeling. It's kind of like hard-edged. So that's just something I take note of. So it's a journey, it's like, okay, just take note that, could be more soft and atmospheric. I kind of liked the black and white one better, actually. And I used that more. I kind of discarded the color one. It was just kind of a little practice with how to mix my colors, but I really used the black and white one more.
It's fascinating to see
Oh, thank you. Yeah,
progress
thanks.
and yeah, the picture and the final one and the middle, everything that you work. And I guess lots of times we as viewers only, as collectors, will only see the final version and we think, wow, like that is amazing. We just assume that it's an easy and fast process for all artists, right?
Right. I know, it's funny that way. People think we just whip our magic wand around and
It would be nice.
magically comes out of our paintbrush. I wish it was that easy. But I've learned to enjoy the process and really, dive into the process and enjoy it. Enjoy that curiosity, And speaking of curiosity, when when I do these color boards, and I really do like to encourage my students to do these, and I encourage them to follow their curiosity. They're like, but what if it, how does that work? You know, it's like, just follow your curiosity. Just take the three main colors of a triad. It could be a primary triad, secondary triad, and I have some other fancier ones that I won't go into now that are a little bit of variations of those. But anyways, take a triad, and then you can pick any pigments to work within that triad to 5 colors. So 3 colors in a triad. So you see I have the yellow and the blue green and the violet. And it's a yellow orange. So, you know, it's kind of shifted off of the primary triad. And so anyways, we take the 3 colors, and then I get to choose what hues, what pigments I'm using. So I choose 5. So I'm not choosing 10 or 7. Now, when I'm out in the field, I have a more expanded palette, but when I'm in the studio, I have more time to think this through and create harmony. You create harmony from having those crossovers. You know, harmony is having something in common. So the less colors you have, the more they will have in common, and they'll automatically be harmonious. So 5 pigments. Also, I go into a lot about pigments when I, teach and my own explorations. So like sometimes I'll use transparent pigments versus more opaque pigments, or brighter pigments like synthetic pigments like the quinacridones versus the cadmiums. So that's how I'm making some of these decisions. But 3 colors for a triad, or if you did complements, 2 main colors, or if you did double complements, that's 4 colors. But we go into that more. But here we have 3 colors, 5 pigments. So you can see I have the cadmium yellow lemon, and plus the yellow orange. I think that was just like a cadmium yellow deep, and then a viridian green hue. And then I used 2, 1, 2, 3, yeah. And then I used amethyst, which was amethyst violet from Michael Harding, and then then on a alizarin mix, alizarin crimson with some blue to make another violet. So I used those as my 5 main pigments. And to be clear, like the alizarin crimson was not on its own; it was mixed with the blue to become a violet. So my puddles, like my 5 main puddles, are strictly, go within, not strictly, but they do go within this triad. And then you can see how I'm intermixing. We go into this in more detail, but how I'm intermixing these into reducing them down to more subtle and nuancy colors. I'm really into gray. In fact, I love color, but I also love all those nuancy grays. And so I'm trying to find, when I'm doing this, and what I encourage my students to do, is find those really unusual colors. How do you find those? You just find them by being curious and mixing. But the good thing about the limited palette, I will say, when you're doing a studio painting, you don't get lost as much, because you only have 5 colors. So once you do this color board, things start clicking in your brain more intuitively, and you can start not guessing so much, because you learned how those colors behave, and there's only 5 colors. So if you go off for a holiday for 2 weeks, and you come back to your studio painting, you go back to your same 5 colors, you have your color board, and you click right in. So it really works well for, I really love that part about it. It works well. So, this is just an example of how I have my easel set up with the color board there and my study. And then on the other side, I don't know why I don't have it in the picture, but on the other side, I have my computer with the photo. And although the photo, sometimes I have to turn that off, because sometimes I get into this this hole where I'm like copying the photo, and oh, whew, beware of that. So, then I try to turn that off and go back to my value studies and my, my work. So then it's time to do my initial lay-in, and above I have a dynamic grid, which is something also that I teach and I don't use it for everything, but for studio work, it comes in kind of handy. So anyways, you can see the dynamic grid, and you can see my lay-in with my dark transparents and how they're kind of laying in there with the grid. The purpose of the grid is just to help you organize your shapes, and it brings another type of harmony, that unity. It brings kind of a unity into your work, and it's a dynamic grid, so it's not it's dynamic, as it says. So oh, and this is just a quick video. Hey everybody, thought I'd share what I'm working on now. I'm working on a studio piece. It's a 20 by 40. And I just am in the lay-in stage, in the drawing stage. And putting down a lot of thin, warm and cool colors, establishing my value patterns and my no-tan design. Here is what I'm using as my inspiration for the studio piece. This is a little 8 by 16 on the spotter, plein air painting from MDO, Montero de Oro in San Luis Obispo. So these are the tide pools. I did fairly quickly as the sun was starting to set. And so I liked this little study so much, I felt like it would make an interesting studio piece. So you can see how I'm capturing more detail and a lot more information in the studio piece, which is a challenge. I'm glad I took a photograph, but I'm not just using the photograph. I'm using a lot of the color notes from my study and my memory of that time. I was there in May during COVID. Okay, I think that's enough because I don't want to run out of time. Oh, I'll show you my palette though. And here's an important part of my process is the how I manage the palette. I thought I'd share this with you before I get to painting and mixing and intermixing all these piles of paint. But it's kind of a cool stage. It's a very thoughtful, methodical stage of my process where I'm planning my colors and mixing them. I'm working with a secondary triad for this, so like a yellow, orange, a purple, violet, and a green. So what is kind of fun that I wanted to share with you is the line that I put down the middle of my palette. I do this to organize my palette so I can keep my dark colors on one side of the palette and my light colors on the other side of the palette. This really helps me just in establishing my shadow and my light pattern, which I feel is very important to hold your form. And sometimes it can run away from you when you get into the mixing stage. So you can see the variety of colors I have on the light side of the palette. I even have some darker lights that are fringing in on the mid-tone area towards the center here. More of mid-tone, which is like the gray base that I have on my palette. But I, for both colors, I really try to get a variety of warm and cools and really play around with the juxtaposition of those warms and cools and kind of pre-plan how that might make my painting more exciting. And over here on the dark area, some of the darks just get so dark that I can't really see the base of the pigment much. So I always do a little test pile with just some
white added to that to see how it behaves with just a little bit of white. It gets a lot cooler when I add white, so sometimes I compensate with just a little bit of some addition of a warm color. But yeah, I just thought I would share this with you since I'm
All right, so you get the hang of that. And yeah, I'll just finish up here. I think we're almost done here. So yeah, there's the beginning of my mother piles, mother pools, I call them. And the final painting. That's the framed painting. And yeah, so I think that's probably enough for now. I have some more case studies, but we can always do that later at another time.
That was fascinating to watch. I love that video that you did. And you said it's on social media?
Well, it is somewhere. It's probably down a little bit
Yeah.
on my social media. Yeah, but it is there.
Well, I know I learned lots of things just chatting with you today. Thank you so much for sharing your process with us. And I'm sure people that join your group will get to see way more of this and more detail for these things. One thing that we always like to ask our mentors is a piece of advice that you'd have for emerging artists or aspiring artists that they're getting started on their journey, or something that you would like to have known when you were starting.
Yeah, that's a good one. I think that, just to take the time to really learn more about design and color and your intention, to take the time to define those. And you can do the design part with the note hands, the color part with knowing your tools, which are your pigments are your tools. And with the intention, just having a mindset of being more intentional about what that emotion is, like defining it and clarifying it. And I think those overall that's an overall umbrella. I think that would be my number one advice, just to be mindful and intentional with those tools.
Yes. Well, thank you so much
Yeah.
for sharing with us. I know that I like lots of things that I saw today. I can use and apply to my art, and I'm sure other people will also find it very helpful. I just want to let everybody know that if you want more information on Rose's group starting at Mastrius, starts in August. And you can find it at mastrius.com. You can look for a mentor. You can type Rose, it will show up. And just letting everybody, just reminding everybody that everything we do at Mastrius is live and interactive. It's online, so you're in your own studio. You can get your questions answered in real time by real mentors, master mentors, and learn exactly what you need to reach your own goals with a small group of artists that are in the same level as you are. I have been a member for about 3 years, and I absolutely love it. Like the friends I've made, the things I learned, the mentors I got to work with, just growing fast with developing skills,
Wow.
the support that you get from the community. And I know we're very lucky to have Rose now as one of our new mentors coming in.
Oh, you're so kind. Just yeah, I just want to say, just trust in the process, and really enjoy that process and trust in it, and just never give up. Your art deserves to be, out there.
Absolutely. All right.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you for your time, Rose.
Thank you so much for having me.